Good morning, the Bromfields in the 35 corridor. I'm D. Lee Edwards here, the host of the Real Deal Real Estate Show. And today's special guest is Chris Young, General Manager of Sales for ValMark Chevrolet. We'll be discussing the auto market, supply chain, auto strike, and more as it may affect when to buy and what to expect. But first, it's time for the Bromfields Title Market Report. Today, we're looking at the Bromfields proper. 90-day sales were ahead of last year with 379 homes sold, while 30-day numbers were slightly behind with 101 versus last year at 104, so it's very slight. And we're a little bit further behind on 2021, too. So it's still good numbers, nothing to be afraid about. Home availability continues to increase with 604 homes on the market, 3 homes under 200,000, 69 homes from 200 to 300,000, 185 homes from 300 to 400,000, and 119 from 400 to 5. And of course, that happy number over 500,000. Yep, the glut, 234 homes over 500,000. Now, the rental market shrank a little this month, which is good news for landlords, down to 129 available versus 153 last month. However, it doesn't mean we're seeing improvement in accessibility. There's still a disconnect between home value and rents and renterability. I suspect will remain high for some time. Mortgage rates continue to rise as 30-year conventional was up to 7.74, pulled back a little bit at late week to 7.70. 15-year was at 7.05, and FHA 30-year was at 7.15. The bond market continues to rise, affecting mortgage rates. 91-day T-bill was at 5.345. The 2-year Treasury yield was at 5.05, and the 10-year was up 0.3 to 4.725. If you see the 10-year cross into the fives, watch the havoc start to wreak in the stock market. Speaking of the stock market and Debbie Downer, this week with the McCarthy overthrow, several businesses having really bad quarterlies, no clear winner for the speaker, Biden driving the deficit, as so is Congress, and the Dow was down to 33,127, the S&P to 4265, and the NASDAQ was down to 13,250. Oil prices pulled back after a surge, dropping almost $5 a barrel in the last 2 weeks, sitting around $84.62 a barrel. That's good for us at the pumps, just not good for West Texas Intermediate. Mortgage applications nationwide continue to decline, hitting a 30-year low. Much of that was a lack of refis. You know, nobody's going to refinance from a 3% to a 7%, so that's pretty much wiped out that market. And, of course, we've had a pullback in sales. Now, Redfin, one of those big real estate firms that, knock on your door and say, let us sell things for you, or we'll just pay you cash for your place. We're just your friend. They have apparently hate the National Association of Realtors, citing having to pay a buyer's agent who actually brought a buyer to your house money. Yep, they are accusing it of not being friendly for buyers and sellers. Yep, they just think that, there's just no necessity for buyer's agents, I guess. And the truth be known, when you've seen one of their offers, you might think they're the wolf, not the wolf in sheep's clothing. Hey, more bad news on the horizon as banks tighten lending. More and more people are not qualified anymore because of higher home prices, higher interest rates, and then the growing number of job openings, chaos in Washington, the bond market craziness, and more could lead to an economic slowdown. That R word keeps popping up. We'll see. It's probably more of a slowdown than a recession, but until we settle the battles at the White House, the Congress, and whoever else thinks I've got a voice, we're going to see it kind of messed up. Now, GM secures a $6 billion line of credit as the UAW strike Well, estimated cost so far has cost them $200 million just for this little soiree. Ford has a similar issue. In fact, one report we read on Ford this week that at year end we could see Ford having $11 billion in red ink, and a chunk of that from EV development. No, by the way, their revenue is short that whole amount because their revenue is down too. Now, a strike ain't a good thing. The word on the street is that the head of the UAW, Sean Fain, doesn't want a deal. Nope, he wants to make history, according to Mary Barra, CEO of GM. And quite frankly, she may be right. These big three have not recovered from the supply chain and the pandemic problems, and now we're going to add insult to injury. Yep, just when the goose starts to be able to walk and maybe produce, we're going to choke it to death and serve it for Thanksgiving. All right, now, housing problems for moderate and low income. Yep, there's housing problems now. We got accessibility problems. We've been talking about it for months. Welcome bed pods. Yes, just like Japan, you're now in California able to rent your little cubicle with a bed and a locker instead of having to rent a whole house. I don't know if a bunch of Texans would go for that. We're not very cool about having to share bathrooms and stuff when it comes to sleeping. But anyway, it may drive us all there if government politics continues to be the same. So, home sales decline a hair, interest rates up, oil down, bonds up, stock market down, Redfin, NAR at war, which is more like Redfin wanted a war with agents overall. McCarthy, our speaker, in doubt. He's out, and the UAW holding big car makers hostage. And you, too, could be renting a bed pod soon if you don't get the economy under control. But on the bright side, we're just a few weeks from Worstfest, where you, too, can finance a pitcher of beer. And that, my friends, is the real deal for October 7th, 2023. Now, don't go away. We'll be right back with our special guest, Chris Young, the General Manager of Sales for ValMark Chevrolet. We're going to be talking about the state of the auto world. But first, a few words from our sponsors. You're listening to the Real Deal Real Estate Show on KGMB 1420 AM and 103.1 FM. And we're back on the Real Deal Real Estate Show, and our special guest is Chris Young, General Manager for ValMark Chevrolet. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Now, as a reminder to our listeners, this segment of the show is brought to you by Meyer Heating and Air Conditioning, keeping you comfortable all year long. So, Chris, give us a little background about ValMark.
ValMark, we all got together, Valerie and Mark, back in 2004. Valerie's dad, Don Maxwell, started the store and bought it for Mr. Krieger several years ago. And as Valerie got into the business, and Mark and I came from Chuck Nash Chevrolet, Valerie and Mark formed a partnership in 2004, and that's the beginning of ValMark Chevrolet in this beautiful city.
Yeah, and keeping steady Eddie, so that's good. Now, the last 3 years probably have been the most tumultuous time in the real estate industry, at least in the last 15 years. Even more so than the recession in the 08s. The pandemic and supply chain in 2021 and 22. And how did that affect the industry, and what was the carryover into 2023?
Well, Lee, you know, Mark and I have been together for almost 30 years in the automobile business in this general area. And when March of 2020 pandemic COVID came around, we and Valerie and Mark, we sat down and we thought, you know what, we've lived through 9/11, we've lived through the world credit market falling through the floor in 07 and 08, and we'll power through this. And it was an unprecedented time for the automobile industry because we had never seen anything like this. And the supply chain and, you know, people's personal habits, what they were able to do and not do, we just weren't sure where the business was going, and we didn't know what kind of model we were going to be dealt with and how profitable or non-profitable it would be. Well, lo and behold, it ended up being very, very good, which you've probably heard some rumblings with the UAW workers on how much money that the automobile business made during those times. None of us saw the model we were dealt with at the time. We didn't think it could be so profitable.
Well, it was the same in the real estate. Everybody was going, oh my God, the real estate world's going to crash, bash, and have a bad rash, that kind of thing. And it didn't occur. In fact, it was the opposite.
That's same in the automobile business, Lee. It was it was shocking. March was okay, and I'm back to 2020. April was better, and May we started breaking every record we ever had, and it really got good and stayed good. And that was due to a model we'd never seen before, and it actually worked out very well.
Yeah. So now let's fast forward to where we are today. How's inventory holding up?
Inventory is still challenging. It's much better than it was a year and a half ago. We seem to be stabilizing in the half-ton pickup market, which is a good majority of our volume. And we're starting to see more availability in Tahoes, Suburbans, three-quarter-ton trucks, some of the things we haven't been able to stock in a couple of years.
And that's what I was going to ask you is, all right, so all this talk about EVs, and everybody's got new ones coming, and California's passing rules that if you don't get an EV, you're going to hell. Something of that nature. So, is the demand still for the bigger stuff, the trucks, the SUVs, the Tahoes, the Suburbans, or are we starting to see demand for micro vehicles and sedans and the EV category?
Well, nothing's changed in Texas, where we got to drive 20 minutes to go to the grocery store. You have targeted green cities around the United States, which the population's a lot denser, a lot shorter commutes and things like that. That's where you see the EV markets really taking off. But here in Texas, they're still buying their Suburbans, their big trucks, and their Tahoes.
Now,
we see very little EV market.
In that regard, we saw Toyota and Nissan and Honda stop and revert and pick hybrids back up as a best way to go. Still have fossil fuel, but then have that electromagnetic generation for inside. Do you see GM putting a few more of the hybrids in, or are they going to enter the EV market harder?
They're entering the EV market harder. I drove one for 5 years. We used to have a vehicle called the Volt, which was a hybrid. And I think, obviously for our area in Texas, that's a better way to approach it. So you're not so dependent on a charge because the network's not there yet.
Well, no, and I was talking to somebody that's in the business of putting in refueling stations, and I keep asking the question is, why don't they come out with a 100-mile battery pack that's insertable? You get it, you recharge it at a gas station, drop it off, take in exchange, just like propane tanks. And at least you could get another 100 miles down the road if you have to, an emergency, instead of having to scour the nation for the next plug-in at Buc-ee's, Now, do you see, all right, we have this strike going.
We're close to a month in.
All right. And what is the biggest effect of the strike on the auto industry?
Right now, it's affecting our service more than anything. They hit the parts plants, and that's put in a wrench in our service department and customers' cars not being able to get the parts to fix them.
Now, that's the factory parts. If you don't have them, have the OEMs picked up where they're picking up the slack, or are they getting hammered too?
Well, the OEMs and stuff is, when you're doing warranty work, whether it be General Motors or Ford, it's got to be our parts, and that's where the majority of the work is being done on those. The OEM parts we can't use those when you're actually filing.
When you're still under warranty.
Still under warranty and stuff. So it's very challenging right now, and that's the reason the UAW hit the parts plants.
Yeah, don't have a wreck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, inventory. If you were thinking about where we're going right now, and you got a client out there looking to buy, should they buy now while the inventory's still here before the strike really has an impact on production, or hang loose and try to get something in the new line in first quarter 24?
Right now, as the strike's not even a month old yet, and it's really affecting our service more than it is our sales, because we had so many vehicles already produced sitting across the U.S. that hasn't been shipped to us. So, our inventory right now is probably better than it has been in 2 years.
So you've got inventory sitting around here. The reason that you have the inventory sitting is the trucking problem with 60,000 truckers short nationwide.
Yeah, transportation has been, even back into the COVID the last 3 years, you heard the computer chip stories, and then you heard, now we have a strike. But transportation right now with workers, with rail cars, and with actual transports available is one of our biggest challenges right now.
Now, foreign parts, any of the parts that you're bringing in from other countries other than that support generally in the electronic side, you're seeing any problems there, or is that improving?
That's improving. There was a while where we were actually building trucks and shipping them to the dealers and passing them on to the customers and retrofitting a few parts, down the road, and we're past that.
All right. Now, one trend that was going on, and we hadn't talked about it, one trend that was going on during the pandemic is trying to just everything go to made to order, and Ford, they've set themselves up for a model on the EV side where they were just going to change the whole model on EV, have a separate part of a dealership, do all that, and strictly to order Tesla style. You think the American public can stomach that long term?
No. They tried real hard to bust the franchise laws, Tesla has, and still tries in Texas, and can't speak for the other states, but it isn't happening here.
I've said all along, I've said that's just disaster. Toyota get geared up because they're not having the same issues, and Nissan, and you don't have variety, and they do. People shop. They love the shop.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right.
And buying, the thing about it is, I always found cars is kind of like clothes. You really just got to see if it's comfortable.
Yeah, sit in it, try it on, drive it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and that's one thing, you can look online, and the business has gotten extremely transparent, and we love it with our business model. The more educated and the more that they've looked around and found out, and it doesn't matter whether it's the financing, the equipment and options and the pricing, it just makes it easier for us.
Yeah, and I find at some point in time you can throw way too much junk in a car and you can't use it all, In fact, it probably makes you a worse driver because you got all this stuff going,
Some of them are like spaceships, you're right.
I was saying that, I go, really? Digital ATVs, UTVs? I'm going, and we're going to have to wait 3 years to get a Polaris? I go back to analog. In the woods, we don't care. In a work truck, it'd be the same thing.
You don't need Bluetooth out in the country.
yeah. I mean, I can still deal with a dial on a speedometer, that kind of thing. All right. So how can people get a hold of y'all to see what's going on, what kind of deals may be had, what the financing's like?
Got a great inventory like we were talking about earlier, probably as good as we've seen it across the board in 2 years. That will continue because of the built product that's out there that they will continue shipping. As far as interest rates, the companies are not just General Motors, but they're offering incentivized rates because the rates have gotten so high, kind of in lieu of some rebates, which we hadn't seen in a while.
Right.
So that's helped. And it's just nice to have the availability. Like right now, I have Suburbans and Tahoes on the lot available that you can come in and take one home today. And it's been 3 or 4 years since that's happened.
I know.
Now, personally. Yeah, because you've had to wait for a few years.
Yeah. My problem is big trucks. with
Yeah.
long beds. I almost have to pray for them 6 months in advance. Now, last thing, the used car business got really strong during the pandemic because of the availability thing and some of that going on. You still seeing a good demand on used cars as well?
Still seeing a really good demand. Back in the pandemic days, another unprecedented time, we saw used car prices spike that we've never seen in the history of the automobile business.
We had that in real estate too.
Yes, yes. And so, we worked through that. It helped a lot of people get in and out of the market. And right now, it has settled back a little bit like the real estate market has, but it's still very good. The used car market's strong.
Good. Well, it sounds like overall you got a good plan. You've got inventory that people can actually go in, sit in, buy in, drive out. So that's good. How can people find out about what you got going? What's your website and that kind of thing?
Lee, we're on the best location in the area, right on I-35, just off 186 at Walnut. The big blue tower that says ValMark Chevrolet on it, we're right there. We got a complete line of cars, SUVs, big trucks, and we've got a great used car inventory, and we've got great in-house financing.
Well, that sounds good. It's great to have you on. And by the way, that Corvette's still one of the sexiest cars in America.
Yep. And one other thing, don't forget, www.valmarkchevy.com.
Perfect. Thank you for coming out today, and we look forward to seeing you in the near future. Thanks again to Chris Young, General Manager of Sales for ValMark. It's glad to have you out.
Appreciate you having me, Lee.
Thanks. Now stay right there. We'll be right back after a few words on our sponsors. You're listening to the Real Deal Real Estate Show on KGNB 1420 AM and 103.1 FM. Lee's Hot Picks up next. We're back on the Real Deal Real Estate Show, and it's time for Lee's Hot Picks of the Week, brought to you by Bubba's Smoked Meats and Fancy Sauces, and of course, Bubba's Backyard Hillside Entertainment Venue. Now, first up, 3058 Snowberry in the Bromfields is a 2,295 square foot, two-story home offered by Colin Corrington with White Line Realty. This 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home has several great upgrades, including laminate floors, lighting, and other key issues. However, it's got a little bit of a foundation issue, which is affecting the price. Yep, it needs to be addressed, but guess what? They've lowered the price to $117 a foot. That's $269,000. No telling where you could negotiate to if you can do your own foundation work. We give it 1 jalapeno. Now, looking for an immaculate home with quality features? Then look no further than 329 Posey Pass. It fits the bill. This 1,738 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath Castle Rock home in Magnolia Springs has a nice dining area, tile floors, spacious kitchen, plenty of granite counter space, lots of cabinets, open living area with loads of light. The owner bedroom is roomy with space for large furniture and a sitting area, separate tub and shower, and ample closet space. And a really nice backyard with a pergola, a nice patio. It backs up to a green belt where you see nothing but green, all for only, well, $339,950 or $202 a foot. Yep, we give it 2 jalapenos. Now, one a piece of history. Island Privileges, the #1 addresses in the entire city. 315, that's 315 West Edgewater is the call. That's 2,538 square foot, 1932's vintage home with Spanish tile roof and rock siding. Got spacious living area, large dining room, massive kitchen. All you got to do is make an offer, make a dream, and oh, by the way, enjoy Spring Island and going back in time. So that's what we have today. For other great deals like this, go to dleeedwardsrealty.com and search the entire MLS. Or Call 830-620-7653. That's 830-620-SOLD. And speak to one of our, super enthusiastic agents like Becky Wilder. Now, next week, we'll be talking with MBISD Superintendent about the upcoming voter referendums and initiatives. You're going to want to hear about it because, hey, there's going to be a tax rate subject to talk about and some other initiatives. So don't miss out. Join us next Saturday at 10 a.m. on KGNB 1420 a.m. and 103.1 FM for the Real Deal Real Estate Show, where you get real estate and financial news, as well as some guests that'll keep you informed and up to date. For the Real Deal Real Estate Show, I'm D. Lee Edwards saying good day, Nebraska, and good investing.